People in this place lack honesty. They speak behind your back. I believe that the majority of individuals are unaware of the effectiveness of being silent. Your buddy, your wife, and your child. Everyone can accomplish something in life, but if you don't keep it together, things will really spiral out of control. But you're keeping it together, dude. How Yandy and you, Mendeecees, how are you? You know, we've been talking about it for a while. Do you understand what I mean? How I'm aware that folks are trying their hardest to figure out what's going on. It's been challenging, but we've been coping and working to find solutions, and to be really honest, I'm not even sure where we are at the moment. There will be a solution. The whole hip-hop and love communities are asking the same question after you and your family have been together for 20 years. Are Mendeecees and Yandy completed at last? Mendeecees sat with Scrappy and Carly Red in a startling incident that was captured on video. And his revelation has left admirers giddy with anticipation. Imagine dedicating 2 decades of your life to someone, creating a family, persevering through jail time, public scandals, and unending turmoil, only to hear Mendeecees remark, "I can't even say where we at right now." Scrappy's expression told it all. Carly's eyes were wide as she leaned forward, almost incredulous at what she was hearing. This was more than simply a verbal blunder. This was an admission that caused a flurry of conjecture to break forth. Are we seeing the gradual disintegration of one of the most famous couples on reality TV? Or is this only a new chapter in their endless tale of love, treachery, and surviving? In any event, feelings are running high. The whole hip-hop scene is holding its breath as rumors are catching on like wildfire. At first, the mood in the lounge was surprisingly serene. Scrappy had been making jokes that typically made people smile, chatting about music and laughing. Carly Red was scrolling through her phone while feigning inattention. She was actually taking in every word that was spoken. Then Mendeecees finally entered the room. He was not noisy. He wasn't even attempting to attract notice. However, there was something about his gaze and his gait that instantly changed the tone. His shoulders seemed to be burdened by more than just the day's workload as he sat down across from them. Scrappy broke into the stillness, never one to skirt a topic. He said nonchalantly, "Yo, how are you and Yandy doing?" However, everyone in the room understood that the inquiry wasn't only a casual one. The question was that. Mendeecees hesitated, a faint half-smile spreading over his face. The kind that conceals more than it displays. He continued, "Been easy like, that's been our conversation for a little minute," in a quiet but distinct voice. "I am aware that people are trying their hardest to figure out what we are doing. It's been challenging, but we've been coping and working to find solutions. And to be honest, I'm not even sure where we are at the moment." The silence that ensued, more weight than anything else, was placed on his remarks. Carly Red's eyes slowly raised to meet his face as her fingers froze in mid-scroll. With his eyebrows lifted as if he was shocked that Mendeecees had really spoken it out, Scrappy leaned back. "Hold on, what?" Partly in surprise, partly in enthusiasm, Carly's voice broke slightly. Even though she enjoyed a good narrative, she wasn't ready for this type of admission. Mendeecees put his hands on his knees and let out a breath. "Listen, there will be a solution, no matter what." The phrase 2 decades echoed in the air like a bell when you had spent that much time with someone, regardless of your family. 20 years was more than a number. It was late nights, court appearances, memories, conflicts, children, innumerable reconciliations, and unending drama. It was a lifetime of public and personal sacrifice. Scrappy leaned forward and shook his head. "Hey, that's heavy. 20 years, dude. People aspire to that type of history and commitment. Furthermore, you claim that you don't even understand." Men stared down, too exhausted to pretend, yet almost humiliated. "Scrap, people don't get it. They believe the entire tale to be what they watch on television. But it's disputes behind closed doors, dude. Sleepless evenings are the norm. It's financial stress. Children. What was stated by whom? What was done by whom? That is not captured by the cameras. When the entire world is waiting for you to fail, they don't understand the strain of attempting to keep a family together." Carly drew closer, her piercing gaze glistening. "So are all of you together?" The true question is that. The silence. The sound that ensued was overwhelming. He didn't respond. Not right away. His quiet was a voice. More than words could say. Fans were already going crazy outside that room. Within minutes, the video became viral on social media, and the responses were swift. Did you notice how he sidestepped the query? One admirer tweeted, "He didn't even deny it." Another adding a gif of a person passing out in spectacular fashion. Every glance, every sigh, every incomplete remark was scrutinized by the online rumor mill, which went into overdrive. However, inside with Carly and Scrappy, the truth was unvarnished. Mendes was worn out. He was a guy caught between loyalty and the need for calm, between affection and impatience. Scrappy made an effort to lighten the atmosphere. Even yet, he was unable to deny the gravity of the situation. See, dude, I understand. People believe this life is simple, but when you have children, money at stake, and your reputation in the public eye, it's a daily battle. Mendes nodded, his face solemn. You're correct. People criticize you and gossip behind your back. They propagate rumors. I believe that most people, your girlfriend, your mother, your friends, and even your children, do not understand the power of being silent. Scrappy inclined his head. Someone can push you, but if you don't hold it down, it blows up. You've been holding it down, but Yandy hasn't. What are you saying? Mendes shook his head swiftly, stating, No, I ain't saying that. I'm saying that it's difficult. It's really difficult, and occasionally know of how. When you love someone so deeply that you feel as though the walls are closing in on you, you may wonder, is love enough? His frankness lingered in the atmosphere. Ever the provocateur, Carly Red persisted, asking, So you're saying there's no tranquility at home? Mendes rubbed his hands together and leaned back. It's complex, I'm saying. People believe that love keeps you together, but it takes effort. It's a sacrifice. It's patience. There are moments when it seems like one person is contributing more than the other. There are moments when it seems like the turmoil overshadows the love. Both Scrappy and Carly were stunned by the candor in his voice. The stillness was finally broken by Scrappy. That's profound, man. People don't discuss this. And they spoke. The internet became viral. The notion that Mendes might even seem uncertain infuriated those who had stood by Yandy over her years of upholding the family. Others stood up for him, arguing that he was entitled to experience the strain and fatigue. The gap simply served to deepen the fire. Mendes appeared more like a guy at a crossroads than a reality TV star in that moment, as he sat across from his buddies. He felt the pressure of 20 years. The world was watching to see which way he would go. At last, Scrappy groaned and shook his head. All I know is that you need to work things out since you two are more than just a pair. Your history. You guys have a full movement. If it collapses, everyone will be affected. Carly nodded, but this time she spoke more softly. Fans adore you all. They have faith in you all. However, if you claim to be unsure, it is a recipe for trouble. Mendes briefly closed his eyes. His face was etched with conflict. Yes, he muttered. There is already a storm. Mendes's muttered tempest was more than just his inner turmoil. It was spreading to every nook and cranny of his existence. The comment section was a battleground by the time the video of him sitting with Scrappy and Carly Red became online. Fans who had previously referred to him and Yandy as the hip-hop and love power couple were abruptly divided. While some maintained that his statements were the most obvious indication yet that the relationship was finished, others countered that they had been together for 20 years and could handle anything. But the conversation had continued inside the lounge. As if the cameras weren't there, Scrappy lowered his voice and leaned closer. Similar to the microphones weren't listening to every sound already. So, dude, what's truly good? Like, what's really going on behind all that ambiguous talk? Mendes narrowed his eyes and rubbed his fingers across his chin. The truth is that there have been fights, minor disputes that escalate into major ones, and discussions that never seem to be resolved. The children are the focus one day, and money is the focus the next. Then trust comes into play. When everything is piled up, you start to question how much more we can handle. With a cunning smile, Carly Red, who was usually perceptive when she scented a story, leaned closer. You're claiming that trust has been the source of your arguments? Mendeecees, trust is a scary word. It simply needs a single little crack to complete. Object to disintegrate. Her remarks were profound. For everyone listening, not just him. Scrappy sneered at her. He seemed to want her to relax, but she simply shrugged without saying anything. Look, Mendeecees said, his voice suddenly more stern, is perfect. But she supported me when I was imprisoned and others advised her to go on. That does not imply that we are not human. Loyalty doesn't always make things better. Scrappy shifted in his seat because of the candor in his tone. Man, damn you! Fans are going to go crazy about this, you know. They are already, Carly whispered, looking at her phone once again. The alerts were, in fact, exploding. The discussion had already spread to blogs. Flashing headlines on gossip websites. DC men are uncertain about their future with Yandy. And it was only the beginning, as love and hip-hop's power duo concluded. As the evening wore on, stories began to circulate like dominoes. Yandy has reportedly been seen by himself at gatherings. Others claimed to have observed Mendeecees hanging around with inappropriate people. The truth was irrelevant. The tale was what counted. And that was a fire tale. The narrative. And that was a fire tale. Scrappy returned to the table and made the decision to stir things up in his own manner. Let me ask you a question. What would you do today if you had to decide between staying and fighting or leaving? Mendeecees stopped. The inquiry was straightforward and bordering on harsh, but it was the sort of incident that helped to establish reality TV. Carly waited for his response, her eyes brightening like a camera flash. At last he spoke, his words dragging as if they were painful. Bro, I have no idea. That's the issue. I'm not sure, Scrappy whistled quietly. That's genuine, man. People are afraid of that type of honesty. Because anything may happen when you're not sure. Everyone in the room fell silent as the weight of uncertainty lingered there. 20 years is a long time to carry love and pain together, but sometimes the longer you hold on, the harder it is to let go, Carly said, recognizing the moment. Mendeecees looked at her with a tense jaw, but he didn't dispute it. Perhaps that's what's eating at you. Online enthusiasts, meanwhile, started assembling old videos, old interviews, and instances where, when Yandy felt alone, she talked about making sacrifices and keeping things together. With a fresh perspective, they relived those events, certain that the fissures had always existed but were only concealed under the surface. Yandy herself was silent back in New York. No announcement, no quick answer. The rumors were simply amplified by her silence. According to bloggers, she was distraught. Rumor had it that she was angry. Some even implied that she was already preparing to leave. It didn't matter if any of it was true. The drama was leaking into every timeline, and the audience was captivated. In an attempt to defuse the situation, Scrappy laughed uneasily. Look, man, I hope you all work it out because if you guys break up, it will break many hearts. Already, hearts are breaking. Mendeecees whispered, hardly audible. Hearts were already hurting as their remarks reverberated in that room and online after they were broadcast. The statement was suitable for a blog post's title. Such a statement might become a Twitter trend, causing supporters to clench their fists and question whether the fairy tale was coming to an end. Unsatisfied, Carly leaned in once again. What comes next, then? Will you take a seat with her? Discuss it. Or are you all simply floating aimlessly till someone leaves? His anger was seething as they stroked his temples. We converse. We quarrel. We make an effort, but occasionally it seems like talking is insufficient. Sometimes it seems like the cacophony drowns out the love. The weight he bore was evident in the small break in his voice. Scrappy looked at him with a peculiar intensity and shook his head. That's difficult, bro. However, you are aware that this is no longer simply your business. The entire hip-hop and love community, the family, and the fans all put money into you. You cannot simply vanish. Perhaps that's the issue, Mendeecees said sourly. There are too many individuals in our company and too many people observing. There are moments when I question whether we ever got the opportunity to simply be ourselves without everyone waiting for us to fail. His admission struck with force. For once, Carly softened without making a sarcastic retort. As the evening wore on, the topic of conversation changed from lighthearted chit-chat to something more profound and serious. Mendeecees was discussing more than simply a troubled relationship. He was discussing the debilitating weight of expectations, the twisting of fame love into a delicate object. Carly and Scrappy paid attention. Moreover, neither of them was prepared with a joke for once. By the conclusion of the butt, one thing was certain at night. There would be no calm resolution to this. Already fans were clamoring for clarification. The love tale that had characterized hip-hop and love for years was in shambles, and blogs were speculating wildly. And there would be enormous ramifications if that connection broke. There was nothing but anarchy in the days that followed. Fan forums, blogs, and gossip sites became battlefields. Mendeecees was only overwhelmed, according to one side, and 20 years of love couldn't end with a single cryptic exchange. His silence, according to the other side, was evidence that the partnership was precariously close to breaking. In the meanwhile, Carly, Red, and Scrappy unintentionally became storm messengers. The same question was posed everywhere they went. Was that what he said? Was he telling the truth? For him and Yandy, is it over? Most of the time, Scrappy brushed it off. But he knew in his heart that what he had seen wasn't just banter. Mendeecees' voice had a weight, an unvarnished reality that couldn't be disregarded. In contrast, Carly thrived on the limelight. She dramatized every pause, every sigh, and every expression on his face as she reenacted the incident for everybody who asked. She understood how to pump up the volume on a narrative, but she didn't lie. And she did precisely that. Naturally, the attention shifted back to Yandy. Her social media platforms were inundated by fans who demanded answers. Comments like, "Queen, are you okay?" rushed in on every picture she shared. And "Say it ain't so, we can't lose y'all." The rumors further intensified when she said nothing. Silence spoke for itself, and there were 100 possible interpretations. However, the animosity between her and Mendeecees was intensifying behind closed doors. The fights had become louder, according to those who knew them. There is more stillness. According to one source, Yandy was taken by surprise when he made his confession in public. She is enraged. According to the insider, she feels as though he exposed their personal problems for everyone to judge. She is now responsible for tidying up the mess. If that were the case, it would just fuel the flames. Mendeecees attempted to defend himself to friends in the meanwhile, stating that he had no intention of embarrassing Yandy or casting her in a negative light. "I was being honest." One confidant heard him say that. "I refused to sit there and pretend that everything was fine." Because it isn't. However, that does not imply that I do not love her. However, the harm had already been done. Words cannot be undone once they are said, particularly not in front of the entire globe. Reactions weren't limited to the supporters. Family members began to comment. Some distant relatives, including brothers and cousins, weren't afraid to express their ideas on the internet. A family member made a suggestion that the issues between no one had known how long Mendeecees and Yandy had been going on. "You guys are just learning," they remarked on Facebook. But believe me, this is nothing new. Within hours, the comment was removed, but screenshots had already gone viral. Snagged in the midst of it all was Scrappy. He wasted little time in seeing Mendeecees again. You realize you've opened a can of worms, don't you? You can't expect people to relax by just dropping bombs like that. Mendeecees scratched his brow, his expression full of displeasure. "This is not how I intended it to go. I was only speaking and being truthful." "You're going to get into trouble if you're honest," Scrappy said, shaking his head. "People don't always desire honesty. The fairy tale is what they desire." Those were powerful words. For years, Yandy and Mendeecees' story was marketed on the basis of the fairy tale. The dedicated husband, the faithful wife, and the family that persevered despite everything. It was even ambitious and motivating. However, that fairy tale suddenly resembled a delicate piece of glass that was about to break. "Never one to pass up a chance," Carly added her voice. "Look, being honest is good, but when it makes news, you have to handle the consequences. And the repercussions is tremendous at the moment. Supporters want answers, not just the facts. Or have you all finished?" Once more, Mendeecees shook his head. "That's the problem." "I'm not sure. I'm trying to figure everything out. But it's becoming worse since everyone has an opinion. There are moments when I think the noise is so loud that we can't even hear one another." Leaning forward, Scrappy's voice was more solemn than usual. "Then dude, you have to stop making noise. This creature will devour you all if you don't figure it out with her, not with us or the cameras." Mendeecees took a while to reply. Rather, his look was a mix of shame and fatigue as he gazed into the distance. In the meanwhile, Yandy ultimately shattered her the most subdued form of quiet. She uploaded a picture of herself with only a heart emoji and no caption. The internet took off. Some interpreted it as a silent cry for courage, while others viewed it as a sign of optimism. The drama was simply intensified by each interpretation. In the midst of all of this, fans began resurrecting classic plots from the program. Times